How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I want to get into Trump's mouth. And y'all see the title there. Trump is a national security risk. And I have, like many, pay real close attention to him. And I have said more than once, this is the first time, me personally, that I have seen a president based on his actions that if the branches of government of the military, if they wanted to, they could pull a coup on Trump. And I was like, damn. And it's been, I can't even remember when that kicked in, when I was observing whatever he was doing at that particular time. And so I have been saying that, you know, the way Trump get down, and we know he loved to get on Twitter, that he's on the world stage and he's being watched globally. I had even said just recently that whatever I had presented to y'all, the Iranians even mocked him, you know, because his ass can't stay off of Twitter. And even his own in European countries laugh at him being on that Twitter and just laugh at him in general. But this is no laughing matter, my royal family, when the very person that is leading this country, good, bad, or indifferent, there's a certain way, and a certain way that you posture yourself and things that you don't put out there to jeopardize America. So I found this, and I know I didn't choose to look any deeper, but I'm going to find the rest of it. This website kind of like found me. It says Donald Trump is a national security risk. Here's the current Trump, his threat level. And it's a lot in here to read. And it's eye-opening. I'm gonna put that link there so, folks can, at their leisure, check it out. And so I said, let's go into some archives and see, when he first stepped into office, what did people have to say about Trump? On an immediate tip. So I got a journey I'm going to take the royal family on and bring it to the present. So this video was done back in 2016.
Talking of what these off-the-cuff comments coming from Trump can mean, the fact that foreign agencies can already be perhaps discerning something about his character, is this a worry at all from a security point of view?
I think from a security point of view, anytime data leaves a secure environment in today's world, people are looking at it. There's no doubt that countries and organizations around the world are looking at our new president-elect as he moves into the White House. But I think as he starts steering towards the Oval Office, there'll be a lot of global intelligence firms and also the government helping him steering to a much more secure manner in communicating.
So therefore, when we're looking, Rod, potentially at international diplomacy that has in some way been taken on board by Donald Trump. Look at some of the tweets that we've seen coming from him just over the weekend, claiming China stole a US drone this weekend, announcing, of course, they spoke directly with the Taiwanese president of late. There we have the tweet up on screen showing what he can let go of. Do you agree that this could be reined back once he actually comes into office?
If you look at his numbers, he's already reined it back. He averaged 30 or 35 tweets a day back in October. And in December, he's back to about 5 a day, and they're generally a little more benign as he shifted from campaigner and marketer to preparing to govern. You obviously gave a couple of exceptions this weekend where he probably threw the Chinese off guard with a couple of different tweets.
Bob, bring it to you, and the hackers, of course, that have potentially been widely concerned about the DNC. Could we see hacking getting into the likes of Donald Trump's very own personal phones, his Twitter accounts? Is that sort of a threat possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always have to look at it as a threat, but I will tell you, when it comes to national security and national security assets, especially around the President of the United States, there's a lot of organizations making sure that that information and the way that the President communicates stays safe. But I do think it's one thing that we all need to be on guard about nowadays. I think whether it's the President of the United States or people in the C-suites of private enterprise, secure communications is something that we constantly talk to clients about.
So I want to bring the conversation to Rod now and give us the sense of what happens to the media within all of this. So far, the middleman seems to have not been needed. He's been going straight to the consumer. Will that become more necessary once again? Will you have to start chatting with the media in the same, rather than boycotting them?
Well, he tweeted back early December that, why does he tweet so much? And it's because he really wants the American people to hear him and not hear it through the lens of the media. FDR went to the radio directly. Reagan went to TV directly. I think this is a very savvy president-elect who will take advantage of social media and go directly to the American people. He obviously needs to be security conscious, but I don't think he'll abandon his ability to talk directly to the American people.
Rod, staying with you, what therefore does this mean potentially for evidence that maybe we get misinformation at times? We saw a tweet coming from Donald Trump himself potentially saying that the popular vote went to Hillary Clinton because of millions of those that voted illegally. Perhaps that's not all completely truthful. What do you feel therefore is at risk here? Is transparency a positive and the risk being perhaps some misinformation at times?
Well, I think the question is the misinformation on purpose? Is there some strategic reason for it, or was he just taking the story and running a different direction? He's quite adept at changing the subject. He will take whatever story's running. When the Steve Bannon issue was happening, he pivoted and tweeted about flag burning, and really had the entire media pivot with him. He's sort of got a unique ability to pivot the story, and I think finding a way to do that when he's governing will be difficult. There are not very many minutes in the day he's going to get a chance to tweet. So what will be interesting is what will President Trump do and what will he have time to do?
Bob, from your point of view, have there been any positive reactions and things that have swirled around the fact that maybe Donald Trump, as president-elect, can go direct to the voter, but then direct to those he is in diplomacy with? Is there any upside to the president having such a direct point-to-point with those in the communities?
Yeah, I think it's a first. I think we're all witnessing something here that really hasn't been done before. And I think until he settles into the presidency, and I agree, Rod, to see how long he actually keeps this up or maybe settles into more a traditional role as a presidency, there's no doubt that he's used social media to his side and what he wants to communicate, kind of cutting out the middlemen, if you will, telling a story.
All right. Now, remember, let's keep that in mind, my royal family, that that was back in 2016 when initially, Trump stepped into office. I would love to hear those, especially that main guy that was talking, his talking points now, what we're dealing with in the present, how Trump has ran his damn mouth in the things that he continue to do, because I picked up on it immediately that he was a security risk, because I remember once he got elected, he went to some kind of dinner party, and it was people from different countries, and I remember he had put some very sensitive documents that are not privy to the public, and he had screenshot it, and he had these folks looking at it, and I said, this dude is really uncouth. So as we continue on, this next video that we're going to watch, this was done March 16th, 2018. Really deep. We're going to listen to what the military has to say.
Four-star U.S. Army General Barry McCaffrey, a decorated combat veteran of Vietnam, a former battlefield commander in the Persian Gulf, wrote this on Twitter, quote, "Reluctantly, I have concluded that President Trump is a serious threat to U.S. national security. He is refusing to protect vital U.S. interests from active Russian attacks. It is apparent that he is, for some unknown reason, under the sway of Mr. Putin." This deserves a word here about Barry McCaffrey. At his retirement, as we said, he was the youngest and most heavily decorated four-star general in the history of the U.S. Army. 4 combat tours, a Bronze Star, 3 Purple Hearts, multiple combat wounds, 2 Silver Stars, 2 Distinguished Service Crosses, graduate of Phillips Academy and West Point. He's the former Commander-in-Chief of Southern Command. He's the former U.S. drug czar. Just this week, Great Britain expelled 23 Russian diplomats over that nerve agent attack on British soil, prompting the UK's closest allies to formally condemn the Kremlin. The White House announced it would finally impose sanctions on Russia, at the same time making the startling admission that Russian cyber attacks threatened American nuclear power plants. And we learned that Robert Mueller has subpoenaed documents from the Trump Organization. The president has said little about any of these developments as he heads into the weekend, as we mentioned, with no public events scheduled. With us again tonight, Tolu Olorunnipa, White House correspondent for Bloomberg. Jeremy Bash has agreed to stick around for just a bit, and joining our conversation, Pulitzer Prize-winning presidential historian and author Jon Meacham. Tolu, let's start with you, the viewpoint of the White House. It was said on this broadcast and elsewhere, the U.S. was nudged into kind of appropriate behavior, behaving as we used to long ago, 2 years ago, where it concerned Russia.
Yeah, if you look at all of the various things that both President Putin and the government of Russia have done attacking the U.S., meddling in our elections, meddling in our infrastructure, in our power plants, in our electrical grid, and also attacking allegedly one of our closest allies with the nerve agent attack in Britain. And we have not heard very much from the president in terms of a response. We finally did see some sanctions this week, but even those sanctions were seen as sort of just a very minor response given all of the various things that Russia has done. And both sides of the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats, are calling for the president and for the administration to do more to really step up to Russia. This is a president who is willing to talk tough against our enemies and talk tough against some of our allies. But when it comes to Putin, there seems to be this blind spot where he does not want to say anything negative about the president of Russia or about the government of Russia, saying that he wants to get along with them, saying that he thinks that he can make deals with Russia. But it's clear that whatever tactics he's using to try to get Russia to act in the best interest of the United States have not worked so far, and it's clear that it's starting to wear the patience thin, both Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill.
So, Lou, thank you. And Jeremy, over to you. Given your time spent in the structure of the U.S. defense community, if you don't know Barry McCaffrey personally, talk about him reputationally and what would have led a man with as many decorations on his chest, as many administrations as he has worked for, to say what he did.
And on this program, Brian, I've disagreed with him on some analytical points, but one has to respect, one has to admire, one has to honor his dedication to country, his patriotism, and his spot-on analysis of what's threatening American national security, and his deep concern that the Russian Federation has unexplained leverage over the President of the United States, and that is compromising the President's ability to defend our country against Russian attacks and to stand side by side with a critical ally when Russia attacks that ally. We have to pay heed to General McCaffrey's warning tonight.
Jon Meacham, in earlier times, like 9 p.m. Eastern Time, you and I had basically the back half of the broadcast tonight to have a thoughtful conversation about what it is we've just witnessed. We'll have to put that off till 2019. But for now, what have we just witnessed today in this administration and how it differs from any known norms?
Well, it does differ from any known norm. And on General McCaffrey's point, I'm reminded of something that a saying I always associate with Jim Baker, the former Secretary of State, who said, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck and swims like a duck, it might just be a duck. And so at a certain point, common sense kicks in about the president and the relationship with Putin. The one thing that I think links all of these stories, Russia, Director McCabe, the Stormy Daniels business, is what the Greeks taught us a long time ago. Character is destiny. And as Michelle Obama said really brilliantly in 2016, the presidency doesn't change who you are, it reveals who you are. And the one thing that links all of these stories is that we have a president who is entirely running things on what is best for him and what he thinks will get him through a particular moment. He has raised brazenness to a governing philosophy, and that's the world we're living in.
Am I right to say that if not a Friday night massacre, what we've seen with Mr. McCabe is most certainly, at minimum, a Friday night takedown?
Absolutely. And it's going to raise a huge number of concerns about rule of law. This is why presidents don't get into these things, or not supposed to get into these things. The Justice Department is like all institutions. It's a human institution. It's got its failings. But, it really began its modern life as an arm of the federal government to fight the Ku Klux Klan during Reconstruction. It's an institution that was created to enforce law and to try to stay as removed from politics as possible. And what the president's done, again, because to him this is all paintball, it's all media paintball, then he's just decided that this is a useful target for him today. And I must say, it will stun me. And whenever you make predictions at this point, we always have to remember that Donald Trump is president, so what the hell do any of us know? But it will really surprise me if some evening we are not sitting here talking about some strike against Bob Mueller.
And in 30 seconds of brilliance, Steve Schmidt's favorite word is rigor. And he keeps saying, as a lover of words, I know you're going to concur at some point, he keeps saying that the lack of rigor in public life right now from this administration is appalling to him.
Well, it's Mad Max. I mean, it's not real, except it is. Another way of putting it is, Washington seemed to be acting like a reality show. It didn't seem to be taking the concerns of the people as seriously as it should. And so the right number of voters in the right number of states in the electoral college system sent a reality TV star there. But be careful what you wish for. If anyone who was paying attention during 2016 should not be surprised about what's happening right now. That doesn't mean it's acceptable. It means we have to stay as united as possible and try to insist on those norms against all odds.
All right, my royal family, let me shut this down quickly. And again, let's keep in mind that that was done in 2018, and I'm taking us to the present, that you have a decorated war hero, high-ranking official, and they train them to be very observant. And I know many know the military overall don't care for Trump. Some of the things that he have done, to override. He doesn't respect, the positions. He'll supersede that. That shit that's going on with that white boy was the disgraceful things that he did, and he basically pardoned him and stuff. And so when you have anybody in the military, very high ranking, say what he has said about, hey, this dude is a security risk. And again, let's go back to what I first initially said, that I know that if you pull that dude to the side and he got real, and say it was me, and I asked him, I say, answer this question for me. Could you pull a coup on Trump and giving this particular type of hands-on general, his soldiers, because you've seen him out in the field, you don't see that often. His soldiers, very hands-on type of general, will literally walk off the cliff with him. Now, when you got soldiers that type of dedicated, it's very easy to pull a coup on him based on his actions and how he get down and how uncouth and uninformed he is. He don't even know how this country even run. It's all about what he see on TV. So as we continue on, we're going to get into the present. Now, it's a short video. Democrats call Trump a national security risk before Senate trial, posted January 19th, which is today. So, because we know we got an impeachment trial going to pop off next week, Tuesday. So let's hear what they got to say. I'm going to refresh this. Just before I hit this, I just want to let y'all know, Trump feels some kind of way because his youngest son is taller than him. And you see him back there getting off of the helicopter. I just thought to throw that in as a dig to Trump. I'll refresh that again with the sound.
Gone to trial before the Senate.
Let's make sure I can get that.
Week will mark just the third time in history a U.S. president has gone to trial before the Senate. And like the starting lineup in a championship match, both sides have put forward the people they think will mount the best offense and defense. Democratic Representative Jerrold Nadler is one of the so-called impeachment managers, or prosecutors who will make the case that Donald Trump must be removed from office.
There is ample evidence, overwhelming evidence, any jury would convict in 3 minutes flat, that the president betrayed his country by breaking the law.
On Sunday, Nadler told CBS News that Republicans who control the Senate have two options: a fair trial or a cover-up.
This whole controversy about whether there should be witnesses is really a question of, does the Senate want to have a fair trial, or are they part of the cover-up of the president? Any Republican senator who says there should be no witnesses, or even that witnesses should be negotiated, is part of the cover-up.
The House of Representatives last month voted on two articles of impeachment. One accusing Trump of abusing his office by trying to pressure Ukraine to dig up dirt on one of his political opponents, and a second claiming the White House obstructed Congress's inquiry. Democrats laid out their case in a 111-page argument that Trump posed a risk to national security. The White House filed its response over the weekend, saying, quote, "This is a brazen and unlawful attempt to overturn the results of the 2016 election and interfere with the 2020 election, now just months away." Democrats insist the Senate hear from witnesses who refuse to testify in House impeachment hearings. Those include former National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Trump has called the impeachment process a sham and argued that since Ukraine never launched any investigations, there was no wrongdoing. Many Republicans seem to agree, such as Senator John Cornyn of Texas.
He's been charged with abuse of power, which is not treason, which is not bribery, which is not a high crime and misdemeanor. So this is the first time in history where a president has been impeached for a non-crime for events that never occurred.
The trial in the Republican-led Senate is unlikely to lead to Trump's ouster, as no Republican senators have voiced support for doing so, and a 2/3 majority vote is required to convict.
All right, my royal family, before we get into the last video, it's something that I said earlier today on Lisa Cabrera's channel, before I jump on Trump. I know a lot of us are going to watch this, and I'm going to watch it very close. And keep in mind, my royal family, we are in a war. This is how I'm looking at this. And what I'm going to be looking at is what's up in my face and also what's behind the scenes. This is very historical because in some people's lifetimes, you don't see a president impeach. I happen to live long enough to see 3, but I didn't pay attention to the first one. I was a child. So it's very historical, and people want to be a part of history. So what that does, because I said I'm a war strategist to some extent, what I will be looking at is the 1%ers, the shadow government, the people who really run this country. You know, they benefiting from Trump. I know they sick of him, but they getting a benefit behind the scenes. And there's some things that I will keep reserved to myself that I have talked about. Certain things when our father is giving me these visions, I don't tell all of them to the royal family, but there's people behind the scene I tell, and if it comes in fruition, then we're going to speak on it. But again, in this war, because of this impeachment, certain people are going to be in place because they want to be a part of this. So remember, America is on the world stage. And America is all about nostalgia, you know, ceremonies, traditions, and all those things. And other countries are paying attention to America because America, she look real bad. And so they're going to be looking at some of the things that I talk about. They're going to have military personnel. They're going to have psychologists. They're going to have all kind of people on the international scene that we don't necessarily know about, and seeing who's there, who's speaking, some people is just, as the camera is going back and forth, who's just, not saying anything, but they're speaking volumes. And in that particular situation, they are taking note. Pay attention, my royal family, because we are a part of this process, and we are the biggest force and entity that they are vastly concerned about, because they're doing everything they can for their dear life to hold on to power. And I often say, I have not anywhere found out in history where any race of people that stay in power to the point of everlasting. That's what they want. And even though in our history, we have been in power hundreds and thousands of years. And I remember, and I'm going to keep repeating, my dear grandfather, he told me back in the early 80s, when it goes down in history, this country will be considered, they hold reign, the shortest and the dumbest. Keep that in mind. And remember, the things that I'm telling you to keep in mind, other countries are keeping that in mind too. They know America's history. And some of our folks will say that don't have nothing to do with us. That's a distraction and all of that. No, it has a lot to do with us, because it's all about the royal family fully regaining our throne. Nobody backing us. No shadow government. What's backing us fully, but really is present, because I feel like that's disrespectful, is Yahweh and Yahweh only. That's it, and that's all. That's how it has to be. Once we fully regain our throne, that everyone else will have a full understanding that we don't mess around with no 1%er and 5%er and all of that. That if you try to bring this type of energy, the very thing that's backing us and fronting us, is a power that you can't even fathom. And I know y'all ass over here listening. I'm talking directly to the enemy and the enemy supporter. And you know this motherfucker is a risk. As we continue on. Okay, this short video, was done yesterday, and it speaks for itself. I mean, some foolish shit.
Details of the operation that killed Iran's top military commander from President Trump at a private fundraiser last night at his Florida estate. The president described in detail watching the operation unfold as Qasem Soleimani arrived at Baghdad International Airport and military officials counted down the final moments of the general's life.
They said, sir, and this is from, cameras that are miles in the sky. They're together, sir. Sir, they have 2 minutes and 11 seconds. There's no motion. They have 2 minutes and 11 seconds to live, sir. They're in the car. They're in an armored vehicle going. Sir, they have approximately 1 minute to live, sir. 30 seconds. 10, 9, 8. Then all of a sudden, boom. They're gone, sir. Cutting off. I said, where is this guy? That was the last I heard from him.
All right, I want to bring in now CNN military analyst, retired Major General Spider Marks. General, good to see you.
Good morning,
your reaction to the Commander-in-Chief sharing these kinds of details and the manner in which he's doing so, a military strike is the subject at this political fundraiser.
Yeah, the details, certainly I have no qualms, and I would say that's perfectly fine. And I'm also assuming the president was not getting a live video feed in terms of what was taking place. We all have the image of President Obama and his national security team during the bin Laden raid, where they were watching in great detail, great
that
precision.
That was as it was happening.
As it was happening, oh, absolutely. It was a live feed. I'm assuming the president was not getting that when the strike against Soleimani took place. To be that dismissive, I think, is inappropriate. Look, this is a moment of great gravity. We took an incredibly horrible leader off the battlefield, which needed to be done. Let's just state that. We can have this debate, but I think it was absolutely the right thing to do, but not to be dismissive about it. I think it's an incredible tribute to the intelligence community and the military that can lash these capabilities together and have this level of precision. And when you think about it, zero collateral damage, exactly what was intended to take place took place. It should be a moment to say, my God, aren't we lucky to have, and aren't we fortunate to have this type of a military and this type of an intelligence community? Next subject.
Okay, let me shut this down.
You want to be the leader.
So I disagree with him to some extent. There's nothing to talk about. Okay, so can you imagine you're monitoring, along with the military personnel, literally down to the seconds that you know that a person is going to live. And they could be your worst damn enemy. It's still a life that was taken. And there's some people that need to be wiped out. And, they want to lie and say that, he was an imminent threat. And he was not. But where I disagree with what this guy was saying was that you don't talk about that at all. There's a diplomatic way you have to posture yourself. That's like Nancy Pelosi really been running a tight rein. And while, we're going through this impeachment process, folks want to hoop and holler and cheer. And she was like, no, this is nothing to be excited about. We have to be professional and do our job. Because we know, like I often say, Trump has no tact and no diplomacy at all in him. He is what he is. He would fit real comfortable right in a trailer park setting and everything. And you don't speak on these things. That is another, to me personally, a security breach. They mentioned the situation with Obama when they did what they did. And I seen those pictures. That was wrong of Obama and them to even show that. You don't show none of that. Because when they presented that, you seen who was sitting in that room. And I'm in a war against you. I'm taking note who's in that room. You know, I'm not necessarily taking note who is talking, because like I said again, I'm also taking note who ain't talking, but they fully present, you know, in the people that they are rubbing shoulders with. And that's why I'm saying we need to pay attention. So, you know, we know Trump, he's real quick to scream and holler victory. He keeps saying everything is a hoax, and it's really disgusting when I keep hearing him say that. We've seen the number 11 come up, which we know what that represents: chaos, disorder, and judgment in the word. We've seen that number come up. So as this go on with this impeachment process, it looks like it's going to probably go into the first stages of retrograde, and I'll keep y'all informed in that, because our retrograde starts in February. But we'll see. And that will intensify things too. And I have to check to see if we going to have any more full moons or anything else around that, because that's affecting different things in the universe. But we know, typical Trump, he gonna be watching this impeachment process. He ain't gonna be able to stay off of Twitter. We already know that. And he is scheduled to be out of the country. And we already know that what I have seen him do is he'll make an attempt like he's taking care of business when he go out of the country. And when it's something pertaining to him, he's too distracted and he can't work. And then he'll abruptly leave. And it's usually his time, just when things are going in real time, when they discussing matters pertaining to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is predictable. Remember when he was making that announcement what ICE was going to do? ICE was pissed with him. You don't make those announcements. You know, we're getting ready to perform a raid. So you announce the raid? Too damn braggadocious. So I'll leave it right there, my royal family, because I really want to hear what y'all have to say. Render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.